All right, continuing on. This is the last big part of Freud, and we're looking here at another something that he's also very, very famous for, and it's pretty legit. Like these are things that people actually do. Um, whereas his theory on repressed memories, people, yeah, it's kind of a bunch of garbage. But there's another thing he's called defense mechanisms, and these are pretty legit. So Freud, in order to deal with conflict that we have in life, Freud argued that the ego. Remember, the ego is the part that tries to satisfy the id, and the superego. So it's like the rational part of the brain. In order to satisfy those things, it employs many defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms. Defense mechanisms operate at an unconscious level, according to Freud. Like we don't even realize that we're being. Have you ever heard someone say, like, don't be defensive? Like, and you react. Someone says something and you react very quickly to it without even thinking. So Freud is saying that's on an unconscious level. And there is some truth to that. There is like a defensiveness is something that we have to be aware of. And the reason we do it is to ward off unpleasant feelings like anxiety or shame or guilt or whatever, in order to or to make good things feel better for the individual. So like we want to make these things feel better. So we do this. All right. All right. Now let's look at some. We're going to do this in two parts. I'm going to do a short lesson now, and we'll do a second short lesson on defense mechanisms 4 and 4. All right. First one, repression. Repression. Now remember, we don't really think this is real, but this is Freud, and he did come up with this. Okay, so repressed memories. The definition is unknowingly placing an unpleasant memory or thought in the unconscious. Okay. Not, and so here's a real life example. Not remembering a traumatic incident in which you witnessed a crime or were abused. Now, the reality is you probably remember it. Maybe not perfectly, but you probably remember it. So this is probably just garbage. Okay, let's look at the second one, and then I'll give the answer what it's called. All right, so here's another one. You revert back to an immature behavior from an earlier state of development. Now, there's no question that this happens. Okay, like a 13-year-old has a meltdown like they're 3. I mean, or an adult. Sometimes you see an adult 27-year-old adult, and all of a sudden they're reverting like they're 4. All right. And so here's an example. You throw a temper tantrum as an adult when you don't get your way. Okay. Those things happen. Okay. That's called regression. You regressed. It's not a good thing. It's very immature. All right. That's real. That's a defense mechanism. It's also a way to control people and get your way. Like, I'll throw a fit and then I'll get my way. Yeah. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. Oh crap! I want to. Yeah, we'll go to it. All right, so next one is called displacement. Displacement. To displace. To displace means like to move something. All right, let's look at what it means. Definition: it's redirecting unacceptable feelings from the original source to a safer substitute source. So you're like a substitute target. So you're like angry at somebody, but you're like, it is unacceptable for me to just go nuts on the person and yell at them. So I'm going to take it out on somebody else. By the way, this happens. Here's an example. Taking out your anger toward your boss on your children or spouse by yelling at them and not your boss. So you're angry at your boss and instead you take it out on your kids or you take it out on your spouse. Have you ever had that happen where like someone else is having a bad day and they're like you're just trying to like be friendly and be like, "Hey, how's it going?" and they like unleash on you and like, okay, that's called displacement because you're displacing, you're placing the anger or frustration onto someone it doesn't belong on. To displace. Remember that. Displace. Okay, next one. Okay, the next one. Look at this. You're replacing socially unacceptable impulse with socially accepted impulse. So like you want to beat someone up. You are so angry you would love to just punch someone. Well, here's the deal. That's socially unacceptable. Just punch someone. All right, and then you replace it with socially acceptable impulse. So what's the example? Channeling aggressive drives, like you want to hurt someone by playing football. Okay. Another common thing is like when you're angry, you go for a run, you lift weights, you do a workout. All right, so it's unacceptable, and you go out and do something. Maybe even like you have a desire to use drugs or alcohol, and you know you shouldn't, and so you go do something else in replacement. You go bowling, you go run, you do something that's more acceptable, and that's called sublimation. Sublimation. All right. By the way, sublimation. Notice in the middle it says limat. It almost sounds like limit. So like you're limiting this impulse that you have that's bad by putting it into something that's good. You're like trying to limit, trying to press it down, sub down. You're going to push down this unacceptable thing by doing something that's good. By the way, there's a lot of research that this is true, and that the healthy way, when you get rid of one behavior, if you have something that you're doing that you don't want to do anymore, you've had trouble with alcohol, you're angry at people, whatever it is, you have to find something that you replace it with. It's not enough to just stop doing whatever it is that you're doing. You have to like replace it with something that's better. So like every time I feel like I'm going to do X, instead I'm going to replace it with doing Y. So like I hurt myself. Maybe someone who cuts themselves. So what you're going to do is that every time you have that desire to do that, you're going to go play guitar. You're going to learn how to play guitar, and you can start to play guitar like and sing, because singing makes you feel better. So my point is that you find something to do, you replace, you take off, you put on. You have to take off and put on. That's healthy. All right, so that's called sublimation. All right, cool. That's also, by the way, something that a psychologist today would tell you to do. There's the first four. There's going to be practice on it, and then we'll go to the next group.